Right now, CBC News has obtained a full copy of the highly anticipated RCMP evaluation report on the long gun registry. It was released to MPs on the Public Safety Committee earlier today. The report concludes that the long gun registry is effective and an important tool for law enforcement. We're going to give you a lot more details on this in just a minute, but the future of the long gun registry itself may rest in the hands of the NDP, and that party is divided on the issue. Remember, on September 22nd, Parliament will vote on a motion demanding that that will demand that they scrap the registry and that it gets tossed out. The Liberal and the Bloc Québécois leaders have told all their MPs that they must vote to get rid of the bill, essentially saving the registry. But Jack Layton is letting his MPs vote how they want. But with a dozen NDP MPs last time voting to kill the registry, does Jack Layton's strategy contradict his belief that the long gun registry really saves lives? I'm joined now by the leader of the NDP, Jack Layton. Good to see you, Mr. Layton.
Good to be here.
September 22nd will be a critical day here, and a lot of people say the gun registry, the long gun registry, hangs on the NDP. The Liberals say now they're going to come together and they're going to vote to kill the Bloc will, the NDP. What will your party do?
Well, we're proposing a different strategy altogether. Mr. Harper has essentially driven a wedge between rural and urban Canadians, northern and urban Canadians, Aboriginal and urban Canadians, saying it's my way or the highway. It's a very divisive kind of politics. And, you know, here we are facing a vote to either abolish or keep the registry, which has many flaws that have been identified. Why don't we fix the flaws? Why don't we try to create some bridges between rural northern and Aboriginal Canada and urban Canada, fix some of the things that have been legitimately and honestly identified as problems with the registry, like how people living in rural areas feel like they're being criminalized here. Well, we can address that, and not some time off into the future. Let's do it now, and that's what the NDP is proposing. Now,
you know, the Liberals proposed, Michael Ignatieff said, let's decriminalize first-time offenders, we might not want to charge a fee for it. A lot of those changes, he said, in addressing other issues for rural Canada, have made the members that were voting to kill the long gun registry, Wayne Easter among them, and other Liberals, say, you know what, my leader has addressed my concerns. I will vote to keep the long gun registry, given the fact that police chiefs across the country support it. Mm-hmm. What about your members? Are your changes that you're proposing in this new legislation enough to sway members in your party who want to kill the long gun registry?
Well, actually, the changes that I'm proposing have emanated from the discussions within our caucus, particularly ideas emerging from rural and northern and Aboriginal communities. I mean, the Aboriginal communities are saying, hang on, you know, we've used shotguns and rifles for hundreds of years since we came into the possession to feed our families, and the Supreme Court says that, you know, we've got to be respected in terms of treaties and traditions. So let's work with that. Let's work with the difference with the Liberals. The difference with the Liberals is simply this: they're saying they'll do it when and if they ever form government. It's a bit of a hypothetical approach to dealing with the issue. I'm saying let's fix it now.
But can you fix it now? Listen, the vote is September 22nd. Are you late to the party with these proposals? Because you're saying you're going to propose to make legislation that will propose to these compromises, but by that time this vote will happen. It's going to happen on September 22nd. So what happens here? The Conservatives could win with the support of the NDP and kill the long gun registry, something that you personally don't support. So I don't understand this.
Well, first of all, the vote doesn't have to happen that way. We could have leaders coming together, which is what I'm calling for, to say, look, it doesn't have to be like some sports contest where one side wins and the other side loses, one side cheers and the other side goes away dejected. Why don't we actually try to bridge the differences here? And that's what we're proposing.
Why would the Prime Minister want to compromise? Just for the record, the Prime Minister has been very clear on this. His party does not support the long gun registry. They don't think it works. They don't think it's safe. Despite the arguments against it, they've been very clear on that. Why would you suggest suddenly he might come and say, let's have a compromise? He doesn't want a compromise on this. He's been very clear on that.
Well, he's been clear on not wanting compromises on lots of things. On the census, for example. But you may recall that I stepped forward and said, look, let's make some changes. You can change your approach to the census. You don't have to be my way or the highway. And yet, and finally, some changes were brought forward. So I'm saying to Mr. Harper, you know, if you want to be a leader, prime minister of the country, it's very important that what you do is try to build bridges between different parts of the country that are divided.
Well, why make this about the Prime Minister? The Prime Minister is clear. Really, Mr. Layton, the question is, are you clear? And a lot of people are wondering, how can Jack Layton support what the police chief say, which is the long gun registry keeps Canadians safer?
Yes, it does.
Could save lives.
Yes, it does.
Well, if you think it saves lives, how can you then, in good conscience, not move your entire party to support, to try to defeat this bill and keep the long gun registry?
Well, because we work together within our caucus to try to find solutions. You know, the country is clearly divided on this. You know that very well, Evan. There's just deep, deep divisions.
But if you think it saves lives...
But instead of trying to exploit those divisions, why not actually try to come up with some solutions? I mean, I think a lot of Canadians are probably scratching their heads saying, look, if everybody could agree that you don't have to have a criminal offense the first time that you know, maybe don't file a report, that Aboriginal traditions ought to be respected here so that they carry out the traditional ways of life without the kind of problems they're seeing. And also, by the way, we're proposing that cities and communities be given the power to ban handguns within their jurisdiction if the citizens choose to do so. So we could actually put a package together that would allow us to move forward instead of this kind of divisive, American-style, drive the wedge between Canadians politics that Mr. Harper likes to practice.
But if your compromise doesn't work, I mean, you're proposing...
I'm hoping it will.
But if it doesn't, September 22nd will be upon us very soon. There will be a vote. If you think the long gun registry saves lives, it will come to the NDP. And for you to say, will you whip your caucus, force all your members to try to vote to kill this private member's bill. Then you can move on to all sorts of compromises. The Liberals have proposed very similar ones to the NDP.
But they're not proposing any action on them. We're proposing action now, Evan. That's what we're doing. We're saying we're headed towards a brinksmanship here. Mr. Harper may like that kind of politics. Most Canadians don't. They don't like that kind of brinksmanship. You're my way, the highway. This is what you get in the United States.
But are you prepared to live with it?
Torquing up the rhetoric.
If the gun registry is killed...
I'm trying for that not to happen.
I know, but if it happens because you don't
that.
whip the caucus, and you know that lives may be on the line, and I'm using your words here, are you prepared to live with that? That Conservatives will get victory, but you won't. That could cost you urban votes, and it would be against your own conscience on this.
What I'm trying to do is find a solution here. That's actually what I'm trying to do, to bridge between these different points of view so we don't kill the registry, we fix it, we make it work out of respect for the concerns, legitimate concerns, that have been raised by people in rural, northern, and Aboriginal Canada.
I guess
what's wrong with that approach?
Because it's the bottom of the ninth.
No, it's the
bottom of the ninth inning. That's why.
Yeah, there we go with sports analogies. You know, and we want one team to cheer and the other team to boo. Is that what politics is all about when we talk about something as important as a registry? I don't think so. Maybe Mr. Harper likes to play it that way. But I don't.
I understand that. But, you know, Parliament is about votes. You got the government who has a very strong view on this. And you've called it un-Canadian, whatever it is.
It is un-Canadian.
No, it's
to be dividing Canadians the way Mr. Harper does.
They have a clear view on this. A lot of people are wondering why Mr. Layton's view is not clear. How can you have it both ways? Both support the long gun registry and yet allow up to 12 of your members to vote to kill it, in which case the result would be you end the long gun registry.
Let's be clear what they did. What they did was vote to send the bill to the committee for study and amendment. We proposed these changes at the committee. We said, let's amend it, let's fix it. And neither the Conservatives, Liberals, or Bloc were willing to do that. They preferred the brinksmanship. They preferred to play the political games. I don't like that kind of politics, and we're trying to find solutions.
Have you spoken to Michael Ignatieff and or the Prime Minister about this?
Well, I met with Michael Ignatieff earlier when it was on its way to committee and suggested this strategy. Unfortunately, it wasn't adopted then, but maybe now that we're moving towards these votes and this kind of brinksmanship situation we're in, maybe now we'll get some reason prevailing. You know, it really is, if Canadians were asked to sit down in a room, rural and urban Canadians, Aboriginal Canadians, and say, could we work something out here? This is exactly the kind of thing they would come up with.
I guess what some people might wonder, you got 12 rural ridings, you got the 7 key rural ridings in Ontario. No, I know, but on this, that voted to kill it. You got 7 in Ontario. Is Jack Layton protecting votes in the north, specifically Northern Ontario, for example, even though he knows in urban ridings, and he knows in his heart he's against killing the long gun registry, but for political reasons, he's prepared not to whip his caucus and perhaps endanger the lives of Canadians?
Not at all. What we're trying to do is save the lives of Canadians by fixing the registry so that it actually works for all Canadians. And that's the Canadian approach to solving a problem.
You have a caucus meeting in September. Will you tell any of the members who are voting with the Conservative private members bill on this, that given the compromises that you've proposed, they should try, they may vote to keep the long gun registry, to change their mind?
Well, look, we've proposed these ideas based on feedback we've had from the caucus, and we'll certainly have a good, thorough discussion like we always do. We're a democratic party.
Jack Layton, good to see you.
Thanks, Evan.